And so I'm hoping in 5 years I can write a book called, We Are Ready for the Next Pandemic.
We are ready for the next pandemic.
But it'll take tens of billions in R&D that the US and the UK will be part of that. It'll take probably about $1 billion a year for a pandemic task force.
Pandemic task force.
At the WHO level, which is doing the surveillance and actually doing what I call germ games.
Germ games.
It's where you practice. You say, okay, what if a bioterrorist brought smallpox to 10 airports?
May I just say one more thing? There's been some discussion about China and what they knew and when they knew it. And I've been very critical. We need to know immediately. The world is entitled to know. The Chinese government was the first to know of this risk to the world. And that puts a special obligation to make sure that data gets to our scientists, our professionals. This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here.
Pandemic task force.
No, we're in a live exercise here to get this right.
What if a bioterrorist brought smallpox to 10 airports? What if a bioterrorist brought smallpox to 10 airports?
How would the world respond to that?
The CDC and the FBI are trying to solve a startling mystery this morning. They want to know how 6 vials of smallpox were packed away and forgotten at a government lab outside Washington. A scientist cleaning out an unsecured storage room stumbled upon the deadly pathogens last week. The tubes apparently sat there for decades. Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. John LaPook is with us. Good morning. We know that smallpox is only permitted in 2 labs in the world, right. The CDC and one in Russia. How could this happen? Smallpox is only permitted in 2 labs in the world, the CDC and one in Russia. How could this happen? How could this happen?
Well, an NIH researcher was cleaning out a cold storage room, comes across a cardboard box which has some cotton in the bottom of it, and then he sees some old test tubes there. And some are labeled typhus, influenza, mumps, and then he sees one that's labeled variola, which is the scientific word for smallpox.
20 minutes of nonstop news begins with a disturbing discovery sparking questions and concerns. Vials labeled smallpox found at a lab in Montgomery County. Smallpox is so deadly, only 2 labs in the entire world are allowed to have doses.
There's naturally caused epidemics and bioterrorism caused epidemics that could even be way worse than what we experience today.
Way worse than what we experience today.
And yet, the advances in medical science should give us tools that we could do dramatically better. So you'd think this would be a priority. The next year will be where those allocations have to get made, including this global pandemic task force.
Including this global pandemic task force.
The nice thing is a lot of the R&D we need to do to be ready for the next pandemic. Are things like making vaccines cheap, having big factories. Making vaccines just a little patch you put on your arm. Things that will be incredibly beneficial even in the years when we don't have pandemics. So, along with the climate message and the ongoing fight against disease of the poor,
citizens expect their governments not to let that happen again.